Annex 1 continues. Other aspects of enrichment. 52 Iran will abide by its voluntary commitments as expressed in its own long-term enrichment and enrichment R&D plan to be submitted as part of the initial declaration described in Article 2 of the Additional Protocol. The IAEA will confirm on an annual basis, for the duration of the plan, that the nature and scope and scale of Iran's enrichment and enrichment R&D activities are in line with this plan. 53 Iran will start to install necessary infrastructure for the IR-8 at Natanz in Hall B of FEP after year 10. 54 An agreed template for describing different centrifuge types, IR-1, IR-2M, IR-4, IR-5, IR-6, IR-6S, IR-7, IR-8, and the associated definitions need to be accomplished by implementation day. 55 An agreed procedure for measuring IR-1, IR-2M and IR-4 centrifuge performance data needs to be accomplished by implementation day. J. Stocks and fuels. 56 Iran will maintain a total enriched uranium stockpile of no more than 300 kg of up to 3.67% enriched uranium hexafluoride, or the equivalent in different chemical forms, for 15 years. 57 All enriched uranium hexafluoride in excess of 300 kg of up to 3.67% enriched UF6, or the equivalent in different chemical forms, will be down-blended to natural uranium level or be sold on the international market and delivered to the international buyer in return for natural uranium delivered to Iran. Iran will enter into a commercial contract with an entity outside Iran for the purchase and transfer of its enriched uranium stockpile in excess of 300 kg UF6 in return for natural uranium delivered to Iran. The E3/EU+3 will facilitate, where applicable, the conclusion and implementation of this contract. Iran may choose to seek to sell excess enriched uranium to the IAEA fuel bank in Kazakhstan when the fuel bank becomes operational. 58 All uranium oxide enriched to between 5% and 20% will be fabricated into fuel plates for the Tehran research reactor or transferred, based on a commercial transaction, outside of Iran or diluted to an enrichment level of 3.67% or less. Scrap oxide and other forms not in plates that cannot be fabricated into TRR fuel plates will be transferred, based on a commercial transaction, outside of Iran or diluted to an enrichment level of 3.67% or less. In case of future supply of 19.75% enriched uranium oxide, U308, for TRR fuel plates fabrication, all scrap oxide and other forms not in plates that cannot be fabricated into TRR fuel plates, containing uranium enriched to between 5% and 20%, will be transferred, based on a commercial transaction, outside of Iran or diluted to an enrichment level of 3.67% or less within 6 months of its production. Scrap plates will be transferred, based on a commercial transaction, outside Iran. The commercial transactions should be structured to return an equivalent amount of natural uranium to Iran. For 15 years, Iran will not build or operate facilities for converting fuel plates or scrap back to UF6. 59 Russian-designed, fabricated, and licensed fuel assemblies for use in Russian-supplied reactors in Iran do not count against the 300 kg UF6 stockpile limit. Enriched uranium in fabricated fuel assemblies from other sources outside of Iran for use in Iran's nuclear research and power reactors, including those which will be fabricated outside of Iran for the initial fuel load of the modernized Iraq research reactor, which are certified by the fuel supplier and the appropriate Iranian authority to meet international standards, will not count against the 300 kg UF6 stockpile limit. The Joint Commission will establish a technical working group with the goal of enabling fuel to be fabricated in Iran while adhering to the agreed stockpile parameters, 300 kg of up to 3.67% enriched UF6 or the equivalent in different chemical forms. This technical working group will also, within 1 year, work to develop objective technical criteria for assessing whether fabricated fuel and its intermediate products can be readily converted to UF6. Enriched uranium in fabricated fuel assemblies and its intermediate products manufactured in Iran and certified to meet international standards, including those for the modernized Iraq research reactor, will not count against the 300 kg UF6 stockpile limit provided the Technical Working Group of the Joint Commission approves that such fuel assemblies and their intermediate products cannot be readily reconverted into UF6. This could for instance be achieved through impurities, e.g. burnable poisons or otherwise, contained in fuels or through the fuel being in a chemical form such that direct conversion back to UF6 would be technically difficult without dissolution and purification. The objective technical criteria will guide the approval process of the Technical Working Group. The IAEA will monitor the fuel fabrication process for any fuel produced in Iran to verify that the fuel and intermediate products comport with the fuel fabrication process that was approved by the Technical Working Group. The Joint Commission will also support assistance to Iran including through IAEA technical cooperation as appropriate, in meeting international qualification standards for nuclear fuel produced by Iran. 60. Iran will seek to enter into a commercial contract with entities outside Iran for the purchase of fuel for the TRR and enriched uranium targets. The E3/EU+3 will facilitate, as needed, the conclusion and implementation of this contract. In the case of lack of conclusion of a contract with a fuel supplier, E3/EU+3 will supply a quantity of 19.75% enriched uranium oxide, U3O8, and deliver to Iran, exclusively for the purpose of fabrication in Iran of fuel for the TRR and enriched uranium targets for the lifetime of the reactor. This 19.75% enriched uranium oxide, U3O8, will be supplied in increments no greater than approximately 5 kg and each new increment will be provided only when the previous increment of this material has been verified by the IAEA to have been mixed with aluminum to make fuel for the TRR or fabricated into enriched uranium targets. Iran will notify the E3/EU+3 within 2 years before the contingency of TRR fuel will be exhausted in order to have the uranium oxide available 6 months before the end of the 2-year period. K. Centrifuge manufacturing. 61. Consistent with its enrichment and enrichment R&D plan, Iran will only engage in production of centrifuges, including centrifuge rotors suitable for isotope separation or any other centrifuge components, to meet the enrichment and enrichment R&D requirements of this annex. 62. Consistent with its plan, Iran will use the stock of IR-1 centrifuge machines in storage, which are in excess of the remaining 5,060 IR-1 centrifuges in Natanz and the IR-1 centrifuges installed at Fordow, for the replacement of failed or damaged machines. Whenever during the 10-year period from the start of the implementation of the JCPOA, the level of stock of IR-1 machines falls to 500 or below, Iran may maintain this level of stock by resuming production of IR-1 machines at a rate up to the average monthly crash rate without exceeding the stock of 500. 63. Consistent with its plan, at the end of Year 8, Iran will commence manufacturing of IR-6 and IR-8 centrifuges without rotors through Year 10 at a rate of up to 200 centrifuges per year for each type. After Year 10, Iran will produce complete centrifuges with the same rate to meet its enrichment and enrichment R&D needs. Iran will store them at Natanz in an above-ground location, under IAEA continuous monitoring, until they are needed for final assembly according to the enrichment and enrichment R&D plan. L. Additional Protocol and Modified Code 3.1. 64. Iran will notify the IAEA of provisional application of the Additional Protocol to its Safeguards Agreement in accordance with Article 17(b) of the Additional Protocol pending its entry into force, and subsequently seek ratification and entry into force, consistent with the respective roles of the President and the Majlis, Parliament. 65. Iran will notify the IAEA that it will fully implement the Modified Code 3.1 of the Subsidiary Arrangement to Iran's Safeguards Agreement as long as the Safeguards Agreement remains in force. Past and present issues of concern. 66. Iran will complete all activities as set out in paragraphs 2, 4, 5, and 6 of the Roadmap for clarification of past and present outstanding issues, as verified by the IAEA in its regular updates by the Director General of the IAEA on the implementation of this roadmap. Modern technologies and long-term presence of IAEA. 67. For the purpose of increasing the efficiency of monitoring for this JCPOA, for 15 years or longer, for the specified verification measures. 67.1 Iran will permit the IAEA the use of online enrichment measurement and electronic seals which communicate their status within nuclear sites to IAEA inspectors, as well as other IAEA-approved and certified modern technologies in line with internationally accepted IAEA practice. Iran will facilitate automated collection of IAEA measurement recordings registered by installed measurement devices and sending to IAEA working space in individual nuclear sites. 67.2 Iran will make the necessary arrangements to allow for a long-term IAEA presence, including issuing long-term visas, as well as providing proper working space at nuclear sites and, with best efforts, at locations near nuclear sites in Iran for the designated IAEA inspectors for working and keeping necessary equipment. 67.3 Iran will increase the number of designated IAEA inspectors to the range of 130-150 within 9 months from the date of the implementation of the JCPOA, and will generally allow the designation of inspectors from nations that have diplomatic relations with Iran, consistent with its laws and regulations. Transparency related to uranium ore concentrate, UOC. 68 Iran will permit the IAEA to monitor, through agreed measures that will include containment and surveillance measures, for 25 years, that all uranium ore concentrate produced in Iran or obtained from any other source, is transferred to the Uranium Conversion Facility, UCF, in Esfahan or to any other future uranium conversion facility which Iran might decide to build in Iran within this period. 69 Iran will provide the IAEA with all necessary information such that the IAEA will be able to verify the production of the uranium ore concentrate and the inventory of uranium ore concentrate produced in Iran or obtained from any other source for 25 years. Transparency related to enrichment. 70 For 15 years, Iran will permit the IAEA to implement continuous monitoring, including through containment and surveillance measures, as necessary, to verify that stored centrifuges and infrastructure remain in storage, and are only used to replace failed or damaged centrifuges, as specified in this Annex. 71 Iran will permit the IAEA regular access, including daily access as requested by the IAEA, to relevant buildings at Natanz, including all parts of the FEP and PFEP, for 15 years. 72 For 15 years, the Natanz enrichment site will be the sole location for all of Iran's uranium enrichment-related activities including safeguarded R&D. 73 Iran intends to apply nuclear export policies and practices in line with the internationally established standards for the export of nuclear material, equipment, and technology. For 15 years, Iran will only engage, including through export of any enrichment or enrichment-related equipment and technology, with any other country, or with any foreign entity in enrichment or enrichment-related activities, including related research and development activities, following approval by the Joint Commission. Q Access. 74 Requests for access pursuant to provisions of this JCPOA will be made in good faith, with due observance of the sovereign rights of Iran, and kept to the minimum necessary to effectively implement the verification responsibilities under this JCPOA. In line with normal international safeguards practice, such requests will not be aimed at interfering with Iranian military or other national security activities, but will be exclusively for resolving concerns regarding fulfillment of the JCPOA commitments and Iran's other non-proliferation and safeguards obligations. The following procedures are for the purpose of JCPOA implementation between the E3/EU+3 and Iran and are without prejudice to the Safeguards Agreement and the additional protocol thereto. In implementing this procedure as well as other transparency measures, the IAEA will be requested to take every precaution to protect commercial, technological, and industrial secrets as well as other confidential information coming to its knowledge. 75 In furtherance of implementation of the JCPOA, if the IAEA has concerns regarding undeclared nuclear materials or activities inconsistent with the JCPOA, at locations that have not been declared under the Comprehensive Safeguards Agreement or additional protocol, the IAEA will provide Iran the basis for such concerns and request clarification. 76 If Iran's explanations do not resolve the IAEA's concerns, the agency may request access to such locations for the sole reason to verify the absence of undeclared nuclear materials and activities or activities inconsistent with the JCPOA at such locations. The IAEA will provide Iran the reasons for access in writing and will make available relevant information. 77. Iran may propose to the IAEA alternative means of resolving the IAEA's concerns that enable the IAEA to verify the absence of undeclared nuclear materials and activities or activities inconsistent with the JCPOA at the location in question, which should be given due and prompt consideration. 78. If the absence of undeclared nuclear materials and activities or activities inconsistent with the JCPOA cannot be verified after the implementation of the alternative arrangements agreed by Iran and the IAEA, or if the two sides are unable to reach satisfactory arrangements to verify the absence of undeclared nuclear materials and activities or activities inconsistent with the JCPOA at the specified locations within 14 days of the IAEA's original request for access, Iran, in consultation with the members of the Joint Commission, would resolve the IAEA's concerns through necessary means agreed between Iran and the IAEA. In the absence of an agreement, the members of the Joint Commission, by consensus or by a vote of 5 or more of its 8 members, would advise on the necessary means to resolve the IAEA's concerns. The process of consultation with, and any action by, the members of the Joint Commission would not exceed 7 days, and Iran would implement the necessary means within 3 additional days. R. Centrifuge component manufacturing transparency. 79. Iran and the IAEA will take the necessary steps for containment and surveillance on centrifuge rotor tubes and bellows for 20 years. 80. In this context, 80.1 Iran will provide the IAEA with an initial inventory of all existing centrifuge rotor tubes and bellows and subsequent reports on changes in such inventory and will permit the IAEA to verify the inventory by item counting and numbering, and through containment and surveillance, of all rotor tubes and bellows, including in all existing and newly produced centrifuges. 80.2 Iran will declare all locations and equipment, namely flow-forming machines, filament winding machines, and mandrels that are used for production of centrifuge rotor tubes or bellows, and will permit the IAEA to implement continuous monitoring, including through containment and surveillance on this equipment, to verify that this equipment is being used to manufacture centrifuges only for the activities specified in this JCPOA. Other uranium isotope separation activities. 81. For 10 years, Iran's uranium isotope separation-related research and development or production activities will be exclusively based on gaseous centrifuge technology. Iran will permit IAEA access to verify that uranium isotope separation production and R&D activities are consistent with this Annex. T activities which could contribute to the design and development of a nuclear device. 82. Iran will not engage in the following activities which could contribute to the development of a nuclear explosive device. 82.1 Designing, developing, acquiring, or using computer models to simulate nuclear explosive devices. 82.2 Designing, developing, fabricating, acquiring, or using multi-point explosive detonation systems suitable for a nuclear explosive device, unless approved by the Joint Commission for Non-Nuclear Purposes and subject to monitoring. 82.3 Designing, developing, fabricating, acquiring, or using explosive diagnostic systems, street cameras, framing cameras, and flash X-ray cameras, suitable for the development of a nuclear explosive device, unless approved by the Joint Commission for Non-Nuclear Purposes and subject to monitoring. 82.4 Designing, developing, fabricating, acquiring, or using explosively driven neutron sources or specialized materials for explosively driven neutron sources.